The explosion rocked the high-rise building, sending shards of glass cascading onto the crowded Manhattan street below. Well, at least that's what it felt like to Alexandra Cooper when her eyes locked with him across the charity gala. Alexander Blackwood, 34, billionaire tech mogul, owner of Blackwood Industries, and quite possibly the most arrogant man ever to walk the earth in Italian leather shoes that cost more than her monthly rent. Alex ducked behind a massive floral arrangement, her heart pounding against her ribs like a trapped bird. This was not happening. Not today, not when she was already dealing with, "Alexandra? Is that you hiding behind the hydrangeas?" She winced at the sound of her full name. Only her mother and unwanted suitors called her Alexandra. The voice belonged to the latter category, specifically to Charles Pemberton III, son of her father's business partner, and the man who had been pursuing her relentlessly for the past 3 months, despite her increasingly creative rejections. "Charles!" she exclaimed with forced brightness emerging from her floral fortress. "What a surprise!" "Hardly," he said, flashing what he clearly thought was a charming smile. "I knew you'd be here. In fact, I specifically came to ask you about dinner next Friday. I've secured reservations at Le Cirque." Alex's mind raced. She had run out of excuses. She had been busy with work, had previous engagements, and even claimed to be possibly coming down with tuberculosis on one desperate occasion. Charles remained undeterred. "Actually, Charles, she's engaged," came a deep voice from behind her. Alex whirled around to find herself face to face with the very man she'd been hiding from. Alexander Blackwood stood there in all his 6'2" glory. Dark hair perfectly styled, gray eyes cold as winter frost, and a smile that never quite reached those eyes playing on his lips. "Engaged?" Charles sputtered, looking between them. "To whom?" Before she could process what was happening, Alex heard herself say, "To him," and she grabbed Alexander Blackwood by his perfectly tailored lapels and pressed her lips firmly against his. The world stopped. For 3 seconds, Alexander Blackwood stood frozen, his lips unresponsive against hers. Then, just as she was about to pull away and face the mortification that would surely follow, his arms snaked around her waist, pulling her flush against him as he took control of the kiss. It was brief but devastating in its intensity. When they separated, Charles was staring at them with his mouth hanging open. I had no idea," he stammered. "Very recent," Alexander said smoothly, his arms still around Alex's waist. She could feel the heat of his palm through the thin material of her black dress. "We've been keeping it quiet." "Well, congratulations," Charles managed before backing away and disappearing into the crowd. The moment he was gone, Alex stepped out of Alexander's embrace, her cheeks burning. "Thank you for that," she said stiffly. "I'm sorry I dragged you into my personal drama." Alexander's perfect eyebrow arched as he studied her with those unnerving gray eyes. "Do you make a habit of kissing strangers, Ms. Cooper?" "We're not strangers," she retorted. "I work for your company." "In what capacity?" "Marketing department. I've been there for 3 years." He looked at her as if she were a particularly puzzling spreadsheet. "I see. Look, I appreciate the save, but we can forget this ever happened," Alex said, eager to escape the conversation and the gala altogether. Alexander straightened his tie, which hadn't been crooked to begin with. "I'm afraid that won't be possible." "What do you mean?" "My grandmother is on the board of this charity. She saw our performance, and she's been quite determined that I settle down and get married." Alex felt a creeping sense of dread. So, he said with a smile. That was somehow both dazzling and terrifying. "She's heading this way to congratulate us on our engagement." Before Alex could respond, she heard an elegant, authoritative voice behind her. "Alexander, my dear boy, at last you found someone worthy." Alexander's hand found the small of her back. "Grandmother," he said, turning them both to face, an impeccably dressed older woman with Alexander's same penetrating gray eyes. "I'd like you to meet my fiancée, Alexandra Cooper." Alex's protest died on her lips as the older woman clasped her hands warmly. "My dear," said Edith Blackwood, matriarch of the Blackwood family, and notoriously one of the wealthiest and most influential women in New York society. You have no idea how long I've waited for this day. When is the wedding? And that was the moment Alexandra Cooper realized she had made a catastrophic mistake that would change her life forever. In the sleek black limousine, heading downtown, Alexander Blackwood was furious. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" he demanded, his voice low and controlled. "My grandmother has been trying to marry me off for years." "I said I was sorry," Alex shot back. "Just tell her the truth tomorrow." "You don't understand. My grandfather's will stipulates that I must be married by my 35th birthday, which is in 3 months, or I lose controlling interest in Blackwood Industries." He ran a hand through his dark hair. "My grandmother has been waiting for me to find someone she approves of, and apparently that's you." "That's ridiculous. Why would she approve of me? She doesn't even know me." "Edith Blackwood has an uncanny ability to read people. She's never liked any woman I've dated, but she liked you instantly." He fixed her with an icy stare. "She's already texting the family." "This is insane," Alex muttered. "Just tell her it was a misunderstanding." "It's not that simple. My grandmother's health is fragile. Her doctors have warned us against causing her any undue stress." "So what exactly are you suggesting?" Alex asked, fear creeping into her voice. Alexander's expression was unreadable as he delivered the words that would change everything. "I'm suggesting, Ms. Cooper, that we maintain this charade. A temporary engagement, followed by a quiet wedding, and an amicable divorce after I secure my inheritance." "You can't be serious." "I assure you I am entirely serious. In return, I'm prepared to offer you $5 million. The number hung in the air between them. Alex thought of her student loans, her mother's medical bills, her struggling younger sister trying to get through college. "This is crazy," she whispered. "Perhaps," he agreed. "But it's mutually beneficial. You get financial security and I keep control of my company." He extended his hand. "Do we have a deal, Miss Cooper?" As the limousine glided through the rainy New York night, Alexandra Cooper looked at the outstretched hand of the city's most eligible bachelor and made a decision that would entangle their lives in ways neither of them could possibly imagine. She took his hand. "Deal." Neither of them noticed the paparazzo who captured the exact moment their hands touched, his camera flashing in the darkness outside the car window. A photograph that would appear on the front page of every tabloid by morning. Blackwood heir finally caught. Tech tycoon to wed mystery woman. Alex nearly choked on her coffee as she stared at the headline splashed across the New York Post. Worse still was the photo beneath it. Her hand and Alexander's, both of them, looking at each other in the dim light of the limousine. Somehow, the photographer had captured a moment that looked startlingly intimate. Her wide eyes meeting his intense gaze, their fingers intertwined in what appeared to be a tender gesture, rather than the business transaction it actually was. "Oh God," she muttered, sinking onto her worn couch in her tiny Brooklyn apartment. Her phone had been buzzing incessantly since 6 a.m., 37 missed calls from her mother alone. As if on cue, the phone rang again. This time, it was her younger sister, Mia. "Are you kidding me?" Mia shrieked the moment Alex answered. "You're engaged to Alexander freaking Blackwood and you didn't tell me? Your own sister? I had to find out from TMZ." "It's not what you think," Alex began, before being interrupted by a sharp knock at her door. "Hold on, someone's here," she told Mia, padding across her apartment in fuzzy pajama pants and an oversized Columbia University t-shirt. When she opened the door, she found herself face to face with a stone-faced woman in a crisp suit. "Ms. Cooper, I'm Vanessa Torres, Mr. Blackwood's personal assistant. May I come in?" Before Alex could respond, Vanessa swept past her into the apartment, casting a critical eye over Alex's modest furnishings and the breakfast dishes still in the sink. "I'm going to have to call you back," Alex mumbled into her phone, hanging up on her sister's protests. "Mr. Blackwood requests your presence at his penthouse immediately to discuss the situation," Vanessa announced, her gaze lingering on Alex's pajamas with thinly veiled disapproval. A car is waiting downstairs. I need to get dressed, Alex stammered. You have 10 minutes, Vanessa replied, checking her watch. And please wear something appropriate. You'll be meeting with Mr. Blackwood's PR team. 15 minutes later, Alex found herself in the elevator of one of Manhattan's most exclusive residential buildings, wearing the only outfit in her closet that might pass Vanessa's inspection, a navy pencil skirt and white blouse she reserved for important client meetings. The elevator opened directly into Alexander's penthouse, revealing a sprawling space with floor-to-ceiling windows that offered a breathtaking view of Central Park. The decor was minimalist and masculine, all clean lines, neutral colors, and strategically placed pieces of modern art that probably cost more than her entire education. Alexander stood by the windows, his back to her, cell phone pressed to his ear. He was dressed in what appeared to be casual wear for him, dark slacks and a light blue button-down with the sleeves rolled up to reveal tanned forearms. I don't care what it takes. Buy their silence if necessary, he was saying tersely into the phone. Yes, she's here now. I'll call you back. He turned, fixing those steel-gray eyes on her. Ms. Cooper. Look, I didn't know anyone was photographing us, Alex said immediately, clutching her purse like a shield. I'm as shocked as you are. He gestured to a glass conference table where 3 people sat with laptops open. My PR team. We need to get our story straight before this spirals any further. A woman with a sleek bob and sharp eyes stood. Justine Chen, head of public relations for Blackwood Industries. Let's talk strategy. For the next hour, Alex sat in stunned silence as the team constructed an entire relationship history for her and Alexander. According to their narrative, they had been secretly dating for 6 months after meeting at a company function. The proposal had been private and romantic. They were deeply in love but had wanted to keep their relationship out of the public eye. Wait, Alex interrupted as Justine discussed potential wedding venues. This is just temporary, right? We're not actually going through with a real wedding. The PR team exchanged glances. Alexander cleared his throat. There's been a complication. What kind of complication? Alex asked, her stomach nodding. My grandmother has accelerated the timeline. She wants the wedding to happen within 6 weeks. 6 weeks? Alex gasped. That's insane. I thought we'd have a long engagement and then quietly break it off. Unfortunately, that won't work. My 35th birthday is in 3 months, and my grandmother is insistent on seeing me married well before then. He straightened his already perfectly straight cuffs. She's also moved up my inheritance timeline. If we're married within 6 weeks, I get control of the company immediately instead of having to wait until my birthday. Justine leaned forward. We're thinking a small but elegant ceremony, close family and friends only, plus a few key business associates and media representatives. This is crazy, Alex muttered, echoing her words from the previous night. My mother is going to have questions, a lot of questions. Which brings us to the next item on our agenda, said a tall man at the end of the table. Background checks and family integration. Excuse me, Alex said. We need to vet your family and friends, he explained. Anyone who might speak to the press needs to be briefed on our official story. You want to investigate my family? Alex stood up, her chair scraping loudly against the hardwood floor. This is going too far. Ms. Cooper, Alexander said, his voice deceptively calm. May I speak with you privately? Without waiting for her response, he strode toward a door at the far end of the living room. Alex followed, her heart pounding with indignation. The room turned out to be a home office, with one wall lined with books and another dominated by multiple computer screens. Alexander closed the door behind them. You're backing out. It wasn't a question. I didn't realize what I was getting into, Alex said. This is way more complicated than a simple business arrangement. The terms remain the same. $5 million for a temporary marriage. And what happens when we divorce? Won't that affect your inheritance? The will only stipulates that I be married by my 35th birthday. It says nothing about staying married. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. My grandfather was clever, but not that clever. Alex ran, a hand through her dark hair. My family will never believe I'm suddenly in love with Alexander Blackwood. They know me too well. People fall in love unexpectedly all the time, he countered, and I'm told I can be quite charming when motivated. She snorted. You? Charming? Something dangerous flickered in his eyes. Is that so hard to believe, Ms. Cooper? He took a step closer. You didn't seem to find me repulsive when you kissed me last night. Alex felt heat rise to her cheeks. I was desperate. As am I. He was close enough now that she could smell his expensive cologne. $5 million, Ms. Cooper. Think of what you could do with that money. Images flashed. Through her mind. Her mother's medical bills paid in full. Her sister graduating without crushing debt. A home of her own instead of a cramped rental. What about my job? She asked, grasping at practical concerns to distract from his proximity. I can't exactly keep working in the marketing department if I'm supposedly married to the CEO. You'll be on paid leave effective immediately. After the divorce, if you wish to. Return to Blackwood Industries. You'll be offered a senior position in any department of your choosing. She stared at him. You've thought of everything, haven't you? I always do. His confidence was maddening. Now, are you in or out? I need your answer. Before she could respond, the door to the office burst open. Edith Blackwood stood there, elegant in a cream-colored suit, her silver hair styled immaculately. Alexander, darling. Oh, and Alexandra. How wonderful to find you both here. Alexander's transformation was immediate and stunning. His cold demeanor melted away, replaced by a warm smile as he moved to embrace his grandmother. Grandmother? What a surprise. We were just discussing wedding plans. Exactly why I'm here, Edith said, her eyes twinkling as she approached Alex. My dear, I've taken the liberty of making an appointment for you at Vera Wang this afternoon. I simply won't have my new granddaughter-in-law wearing anything but the best on her wedding day. Alex shot a panicked look at Alexander, who smoothly interjected. Grandmother, Alex and I were thinking of something small and intimate. Nonsense! Edith waved a dismissive hand. A Blackwood wedding is an event. I've already spoken with the Plaza. They've had a cancellation for the first Saturday in May, just 5 weeks away. Isn't that fortuitous? Alex felt the room spinning slightly. Mrs. Blackwood, that's very generous, but please call me Edith, or grandmother if you prefer. She took Alex's hands in hers. I cannot tell you how happy I am that Alexander has finally found someone worthy of his heart. When I saw you two together last night, the way he looked at you. She pressed a hand to her chest. A mother knows. A grandmother knows. Alex couldn't bring herself to look at Alexander. This sweet, elegant woman was being deceived, and Alex was complicit in the deception. Now, Edith continued, I've also taken the liberty of having your things moved here. My things, Alex repeated faintly. Well, you can't continue living in Brooklyn once the engagement is announced officially. Alexander's fiancée must reside at his address. The movers should be at your apartment now. Grandmother, Alexander said, a note of genuine surprise in his voice. Don't you think that's moving rather quickly? Edith's expression suddenly became serious. Alexander, I received some concerning news from Dr. Metzger yesterday about my heart. Nothing to worry about immediately, she added, seeing their expressions. But it has made me realize that life is precious and short. I want to see you settled and happy while I still can. The manipulation was so perfect, so devastatingly effective, that Alex almost admired it. Almost. Alexander's jaw tightened imperceptibly. Of course, grandmother. Whatever makes you happy. Edith beamed. Excellent. Now, Alexandra, shall we head to Vera Wang? The appointment is in an hour. Alex looked at Alexander, silently pleading for rescue. He merely smiled, that perfect, practiced smile. Go ahead, darling. I trust your taste completely. Then, to Alex's utter shock, he leaned down and pressed A gentle kiss to her forehead. Whatever you choose will be perfect. The tenderness in his gesture, though purely for show, left Alex momentarily speechless. And as Edith linked her arm through Alex's and led her toward the elevator, chattering about floral arrangements and guest lists, Alex realized she had passed the point of no return. She was now, for all intents and purposes, engaged to New York's most eligible bachelor, a man who saw her as nothing more than a convenient solution to his inheritance problem. A man who, if the tabloids were to be believed, had never been in a relationship that lasted longer than 3 months. A man who was now watching her with an unreadable expression as the elevator doors closed between them. Mom, for the 5th time, it's not a prank, Alex said into her phone as she stood surrounded by boxes in Alexander's penthouse. The movers had indeed emptied her Brooklyn apartment with military efficiency, delivering her modest possessions to his sleek, modern space where they looked comically out of place. But darling, this is Alexander Blackwood we're talking about, her mother insisted. The man whose face has been on the cover of Forbes 3 times. The man who dated that Victoria's Secret model last summer. Alex winced. She'd forgotten about the model. Yes, Mom, I know who he is. And you've been secretly dating him for 6 months? My Alexandra? The same girl who once wore mismatched shoes to a job interview? That was one time, and the lighting in my apartment was bad, Alex muttered. Look, I know it's sudden. Sudden, it's preposterous. I want to meet him, tonight. Alex nearly dropped her phone. Tonight? Mom, we're still settling in. Dinner, 7 o'clock. I'll make pot roast. Her mother's tone brooked no argument. And bring that sister of yours. She's been holed up in her dorm room working on some project and hasn't called me in a week. The call ended before Alex could protest further. She sank onto a box labeled books and winter clothes and put her head in her hands. Problem, came a cool voice from the doorway. Alex looked up to find Alexander leaning against the frame, watching her with those unnerving gray eyes. He'd changed into jeans and a simple black t-shirt that somehow still managed to look obscenely expensive on him. My mother wants us to come to dinner, tonight. He stepped into the room, which she'd been informed was now her dressing room, a concept so foreign to her previous living situation that she'd almost laughed when the housekeeper showed her. Your first test as my betrothed. This isn't funny, Alex said. My mother has like emotional X-ray vision. She'll know something's off the moment we walk in. Alexander shrugged. So we'll convince her. How? The same way we convinced my grandmother we'll act the part. He swept his gaze around the room, taking in her modest possessions. Though perhaps we should get you some new clothes. First, I'm expected at a charity dinner next week and your current wardrobe seems insufficient. Alex bristled. There's nothing wrong with my clothes. Of course not, he said smoothly. But as my fiancé, certain appearances must be maintained. Your concern for appearances is touching, she said sarcastically, standing up, but I'm not your dress-up doll. Something like amusement flickered in his eyes. No, you're certainly not that. He crossed the room until he stood directly in front of her. You are, however, the woman who's agreed to pretend to be madly in love with me. And that means you need to look the part of a Blackwood bride. I thought you hated all this inheritance nonsense, Alex said. Why are you suddenly so invested in playing along? Alexander's expression shifted, becoming more guarded. My grandfather built Blackwood Industries from nothing. I won't let it fall into the hands of the board's vultures who care only for short-term profits. It was the first genuine emotion she'd seen from him, a flash of passion behind the controlled facade. Besides, he continued, his tone lightening, you can't tell me you've never wanted to go on a shopping spree with an unlimited budget. I've always been more of a discount rack kind of girl, Alex replied. Well, Miss Cooper, welcome to the black card life. He pulled out his phone. I'll have Vanessa arrange a stylist to meet us at Bergdorf's in an hour. I don't need a stylist. I need a script for dinner with my mother tonight. Alexander slipped his phone back into his pocket. Very well, let's rehearse. What does your mother know about me? Only what she's read in the tabloids, which isn't exactly flattering. You have a reputation, you know. I'm aware, he said dryly. And what about you? Any ex-boyfriends I should know about? Anyone who might cause trouble? Alex hesitated. Just one. James, we dated for 2 years in college and broke up a year ago. He's in California now. Amicable split? Not exactly. She fidgeted with the sleeve of her blouse. He took a job in Silicon Valley without telling me, then suggested we try long distance. I said no. Alexander nodded. Good. Clean break. Anyone else? A few first dates that went nowhere. She frowned. What about you? Anyone I should be worried about showing up to challenge our fairy tale romance? No one serious. His expression was carefully neutral. What about the model? The one my mother mentioned? Sophia. He waved a dismissive hand. That was publicity arrangement. Her agent contacted my PR team. We attended a few events together, were photographed at the right restaurants. Nothing more. Alex blinked. You mean it was fake? Like us? Not quite. There was no financial component. Merely mutual brand enhancement. He checked his watch. A sleek, understated timepiece that probably cost more than her student loans. Now, about tonight. What is your mother like? Honesty? Sincerity? Family? Alex listed the values her mother held dear. She raised me and my sister alone after our father died when I was 12. She worked 2 jobs to put me through Columbia. Alexander's expression softened slightly. I'm sorry about your father. The simple condolence, delivered without artifice, caught Alex off guard. Thank you. What does she do now? She's a high school English teacher. She loves classic literature and quotes Shakespeare when she's nervous. Alex smiled fondly. And she makes the world's best pot roast, which you'll experience tonight. I look forward to it. He paused, then added, My mother died when I was 8. Cancer. The personal revelation surprised her. I didn't know that. It's not in the tabloids, he said simply. My father raised me with my grandmother's help until he passed away 5 years ago. I'm sorry, Alex said, understanding now why. His relationship with his grandmother seemed so important, despite his apparent frustration with her matchmaking efforts. A moment of genuine connection stretched between them, quickly broken when Alexander's phone buzzed. He glanced at it. Vanessa has arranged for stylists to meet us at Bergdorf's, then Saks. We leave in 30 minutes. I still don't think I need $5 million, Ms. Cooper, he reminded her. Consider it part of the job. 3 hours, and what felt like hundreds of outfits later, Alex stood in front of a 3-way mirror wearing a midnight blue cocktail dress that made her feel like she'd stepped out of a movie. This one, said the stylist, a rail-thin woman named Margot who spoke with unshakable authority. It's perfect for the Thompson Foundation dinner. Alexander, who had been sitting in a plush chair answering emails on his phone, looked up. His eyes widened almost imperceptibly as they swept over her. Do you like it? Alex asked, feeling strangely vulnerable under his gaze. He cleared his throat. It's suitable. The stylist rolled her eyes behind Alexander's back, mouthing, Men! To Alex with an exasperated expression. By the time they left the stores, Alexander's driver, James, was loading what seemed like an entire department store's worth of bags into the car. I can't believe you spent that much money in one afternoon, Alex said as they slid into the back seat of the Bentley. Consider it an investment in our mutual success, Alexander replied. Now we should return home to change before dinner with your mother. Home, Alex repeated quietly. The word felt strange in her mouth when referring to his penthouse. Alexander seemed to catch her discomfort. It's temporary, he reminded her, his voice low enough that the driver couldn't hear. Just until we secure the inheritance and can gracefully part ways. Right, she nodded. Temporary. The ride to her mother's modest house in Queens was silent, with Alex growing increasingly nervous as they approached. She fidgeted with the sleeve of her new cashmere sweater. Alexander had insisted she wear something from their shopping spree. "Stop fidgeting," he murmured as they walked up the front steps. "You look like you're heading to your execution, not dinner with your mother." "Easy for you to say," Alex whispered back. "You've never experienced Helen Cooper's interrogation techniques." Before she could knock, the door flew open, revealing a petite woman in her 50s with Alex's same dark hair, streaked with elegant silver, and warm brown eyes that widened at the sight of Alexander. "Mom," Alex said, forcing brightness into her voice. "This is Alexander. Alexander, this is my mother, Helen Cooper." Alexander transformed before her eyes, his usual cool demeanor replaced by warm charm as he stepped forward with an enormous bouquet of flowers Alex hadn't even noticed him carrying. "Mrs. Cooper," he said, taking her hand, "it's a pleasure to meet the woman who raised such an extraordinary daughter." Helen Cooper, who had raised 2 girls on a teacher's salary and hadn't been intimidated by anything since facing down the school board for budget cuts, actually blushed. "Oh my," she said, accepting the flowers. "Please come in and call me Helen." As they stepped inside, Alex caught sight of her younger sister, Mia, lurking in the dining room doorway with wide, disbelieving eyes. At 21, Mia was the spitting image of Alex at that age, except for the bright blue streak in her hair that reflected her more rebellious personality. "And this must be Mia," Alexander said, extending his hand. "Alex has told me so much about you." Mia gaped at him, then at Alex, before finally finding her voice. "Has she? Funny, because she's told me absolutely nothing about you until yesterday." "Mia," Helen scolded, "where are your manners?" Alexander laughed, the sound surprisingly genuine. "It's quite all right. Alex wanted to keep our relationship private until we were sure it was serious." He glanced at Alex with an expression so tender it almost convinced even her. And now, it couldn't be more serious. Dinner was a surreal experience. Alexander charmed Helen with compliments about her cooking and thoughtful questions about her teaching career. He engaged Mia in a surprisingly knowledgeable conversation about her computer science studies. And throughout it all, he maintained a constant connection with Alex, his hand resting lightly on hers, his gaze finding hers across the table, small gestures that painted a picture of a man deeply in love. "So," Helen said as she served apple pie for dessert, "how did this all happen? 6 months of secrecy and suddenly you're engaged." Alex tensed, but Alexander smoothly interjected. "I noticed Alex at a company event last fall," he began, his voice warm with affection. "She was arguing with our head of design about a marketing campaign, completely unintimidated by his position or ego." He smiled at Alex. "I was captivated by her passion and intelligence." Alex stared at him, momentarily speechless. This wasn't the story they'd rehearsed in the car. "I asked her to dinner the next day," he continued. "She turned me down." "You did?" Mia exclaimed, looking at Alex with newfound respect. "I did," Alex confirmed, recovering quickly. "I thought dating the CEO was a terrible idea. She made me work for it," Alexander said with a self-deprecating smile that transformed his usually austere features. "It took 3 attempts before she agreed to have coffee with me. Just coffee," she insisted. "No dinner, no expectations." Helen was watching them with a softness in her eyes that made Alex's chest ache with guilt. As for the proposal, Alexander reached for Alex's hand, his thumb brushing over her knuckles. "I had planned something elaborate, but in the end it happened quite spontaneously. We were at my penthouse on a rainy evening, and Alex was standing by the window watching the storm roll in over the park. And I just knew." His gaze locked with hers, and for a moment, the rest of the room seemed to fade away. "I knew I never wanted to be without her," he finished quietly. A lump formed in Alex's throat at the beautiful lie. She forced herself to smile, squeezing his hand as if confirming his story. "Well," Helen said, discreetly wiping a tear from the corner of her eye, "I can't say I'm not shocked by all this, but I haven't seen my Alexandra look at anyone the way she looks at you, Alexander. The drive back to Manhattan was quiet, both of them processing the evening. Your mother is lovely, Alexander finally said as they crossed the Queensboro Bridge, the Manhattan skyline glittering before them. I can see where you get your strength. Thank you for being so nice to her, Alex replied. And for the story, it was convincing. Alexander glanced at her. The best deceptions contain elements of truth. Elements of truth. You did argue with the head of design at the fall marketing presentation. It was quite impressive. I happened to be walking by the conference room. Alex stared at him. You actually remember that? I make it a point to know the exceptional people in my company, Ms. Cooper. They lapsed into silence again until they reached the penthouse. I'll take the guest room, Alexander said as they rode the elevator up. You can have the master suite. That's not necessary, Alex protested. I don't want to displace you. It's no displacement. The guest room is perfectly comfortable. When they reached the penthouse, Alex hesitated before heading to her new bedroom. Alexander. He turned, one eyebrow raised in question. Do you think she bought it? My mother? He studied her for a moment. Yes, I believe she did. He paused, then added, You should call me Alex when we're alone. It will help us avoid slips in public. But that's my name too. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. I'm aware of the irony. As Alex lay in his ridiculously large bed later that night, surrounded by luxury she'd never imagined would be part of her life, she found herself